Hi, students of business and professional writing. Welcome to the Unit 7 lecture. In this lecture, I'm going to briefly address the Unit 7 discussion question as well as part 2 of the report. Let's get started. So the Unit 7 discussion question asks, this unit allows you to complete the entire draft of the report. Think about the parts that make up this document from parts 1 and 2. How do you think this longer type of document may be helpful to you as you prepare and consider professional writing for your fields? So my interpretation of this question is basically, how is it helpful to all of us to prepare a long professional document that has a lot of rules in terms of formatting, and also a great deal of pressure is on us not to have any careless errors or grammatical errors. How does it help to create this long document now for this class? How is that helping to prepare you for your career and your field, where at some point you're going to have to prepare a long document where the stakes are somewhat high and you can't have any errors? So I immediately thought, for my field, which is professor in higher education, there are probably a lot of examples I could use, but the one that immediately came into my head is what should I call it? I'll call it an application, because at Kane, most of the professors, probably half of your professors, have to reapply for our jobs every 2 years. And the application, for lack of a better word, is very arduous, and it consists of some really difficult, some big questions like, what is your teaching philosophy? How has it evolved while at Kane? What have you done in the past year to advance your teaching style? So it usually takes me about 2 weeks during the winter break to compile, to work on this, and it has to be perfect because a lot of people read it, and whether or not I'm continuing to teach at Kane depends upon the quality of my responses. So I would definitely say that my experience taking different writing and different literature classes has helped my writing tremendously. So when I do have to prepare anything, when I have to write anything for my job, I never panic, and if there is any anxiety or any dread, it's not because I'm worried that I can't write well. It's just because of the work that is involved. But I always feel really confident whenever I have to write something, because I have so much experience that I've gotten while I was a student from the writing courses and the literature courses that I've taken. And just another example I wanted to share with you that really shows how the classes that I've taken throughout my education have helped me. Maybe about 9 years ago, before I got this job, I was considering going into teaching at the high school level and leaving higher education, and I was going to get certified by alternate route. So I was starting to do the praxis, and I did the reading, because if you're going to get certified in English, which I was, you would have to take the praxis in reading, writing, and math. So I did the reading, and I got a perfect score my first time, and I did not take any classes to prepare. I didn't buy any of those books. I didn't really do anything to prepare, and I got a perfect score my first time. And I believe that is because the literature courses and also the writing courses that I had taken throughout my, undergrad and graduate, and also maybe my high school career, really helped me and helped prepare me for that. So anyway, I hope that's helpful to you as you go forward in the discussion question. And now we're moving on to part 2 of the report. So part 2 of the report, as it is assigned on Canvas, it has 7 parts, and I'm going to recap here each of those parts and how you should prepare and format them. You can also check in the textbook for a recap, but you don't have to, because I am including the formatting steps as described in the textbook. So if you don't have the textbook, you will be fine. The first section is the title page. The title page should have a great title. So what is a great title? If you can't think of anything clever or witty, an informative, kind of no-nonsense, straightforward title is fine. But again, if you can come up with something that is clever and witty, That's always better. You want to then have a line that says prepared for, and then the client. Who is the client? Well, if you have created a hypothetical situation in which there is a client who commissioned you to write this report, that's fine. And that would go there. If you have not, you can just put my name. The next line should say prepared by, and that would be you. You would include your name. The next line would be the date. There are several ways you can format the date, just as long as you don't abbreviate it. Okay, so do not abbreviate the date or the month, I guess. Don't put it as numbers and slashes, write it out in full. And then there should also be an image of the company logo. And that's it. Those are the ingredients for your title page. Actually, sorry, I forgot. In past years, the instructions usually say that if you would like to create a title page that's a little more colorful, that has some types of images on it, that's fine. You can do that. So I'll add that here. If you would like to add something else to your title page, like an image or a photo or some type of design or graphics, that's fine. And if you would prefer to keep it just simple and plain, that's fine. It's your choice. But just be consistent throughout, because that's also important. Be consistent. Moving on to the second part. The second part is the letter of transmittal. The letter of transmittal should follow correct letter formatting guidelines, which are in Chapter 6 if you need to brush up on them. This section is essentially letting the group or person that commissioned the report know that the report is done, and that it's done either on the date promised or before the date promised. And it consists of 3 paragraphs. Each paragraph has its own point. The first paragraph explains what the report is about and states that it is ready on or before the date promised. The second paragraph summarizes the report's recommendations. In the third paragraph, this thanks the people who commissioned, or person who commissioned the report, and any people who helped in the writing of the report or its preparation. Now, you're obviously not going to thank yourself, but if there were any other people who helped you to write it or helped you in your research, you would thank them here. And then you would also make any suggestions for further steps if you feel that there are any necessary further steps. And if there is any further information you would like to offer, you can offer it. The overall tone is respectful and helpful. The next part that you're going to be completing is the third, table of contents. The table of contents should contain the letter of transmittal, the list of figures and tables, the executive summary or abstract, the introduction, the mode of analysis, the analysis of data, conclusions, recommendations, your references page, and appendices. Now, I need to interject something here because in the Canvas instructions, there is an error. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I do not create the instructions for assignments, nor do I have access to them. If I did, I would correct this. But right now, it says that the appendices is your APA citation page. That is not true. There are 2 different sections in your report. One is the APA citation page, which should be titled References, and there's a separate section called Appendices. Now, the instructions for the table of contents say that they are one and the same. That is not correct, okay? The table of contents page number is usually in the footer. It is in Roman numerals, and the table of contents should get an entire page, even if you don't fill it up. Don't put any other section of the report on there. And your listings can be double-spaced or single-spaced, whichever you would prefer. The 4th section is the list of figures and tables. And the instructions say that you should have a minimum of 4. So that means 2 figures and 2 tables. Each entry should be labeled. So, for example, table 1, table 2. And then in addition to being labeled, you should give a title to each figure. So let's say you've got table 1 and its title is Graph of Survey Results. And then moving on to section 5, this is the executive summary or abstract. Now I'm going to call it an abstract because that's what I was always taught and that's how I've always referred to it. So the abstract is just a fancy word for summary. And this section is a summary of the entire report. in terms of its length, it is said that it should be 1/10 the length of the report. So let's say your report is 20 pages, the abstract would be 2 pages. If your report is 10 pages, the abstract would be 1 page. You want to provide in the abstract the most thorough and precise summary that you can provide in the amount of space that you have. You want to provide a summary of your introduction, of your mode of analysis, your analysis of data, your conclusions, a summary of the whole report. Moving on, the next section is conclusions. The conclusion section should be a somewhat long and definitely substantial and significant section of the report. You want to provide a detailed discussion of what you have concluded from your research. And I say this and I emphasize detailed discussion because every semester I'll get a conclusion section that's like a paragraph long. That's way too short. It should provide a detailed discussion of what you are concluding based on your research. And it should also include and begin with a description of the background and background information so that your reader has enough context to appreciate and understand the conclusions. And then the conclusions should be presented in concrete and specific terms, and they should also be presented clearly based on the research. So you also want to reference your research so it's clear to the reader how the conclusions depend upon the research. And then there's something else in the Canvas instructions that might be confusing too, so I wanted to address it. It says something like the conclusions contains the recommendations. You may have found that a little confusing. I think it's just ignore it because there are two. The conclusion section is separate from the recommendation section, so just ignore that. There is a section for conclusions, and then the next and 7th section is recommendations. So the recommendations section is described as a short, snappy version of conclusions. What does that mean? It means you present the same information, but it's just formatted differently. Instead of being written out in full sentences and paragraphs, you're going to provide a bulleted list, and you're going to introduce that bulleted list with a sentence. And that's it for the recommendations, and that's it for part 2 of your report. Great job with your citation pages, a great job with the Unit 5 reflections, excellent work, and I look forward to reading your next assignments. Hope this was helpful. Have a great night.